to projection. I would like to thank Frank and Travis for the opportunity to share my research with you. COVID-19 last Sunday, so in a window in Washington Heights on Gabrini Street. COVID-19 has the world. The pandemic created enormous economic and political turmoil. New York City became of the pandemic for the United States, recorded the most deaths in the nation. 1,000 US Navy hospital ships docked in New York City on March 3rd to help the city brace for COVID-19. Self-quarantine turned into isolation. Over 100,000 small businesses closed forever, according to the Washington Post, by May 12th. School graduates missed commencement COVID-19, like public school, one up in Washington Heights, northern Manhattan. The 50th anniversary of the first Pride March in New York City looked a little different this year. The MTA took enormous financial hit, loss of revenue, loss of dedicated tax revenue, and steep increase in the cost of spraying the system with a disinfectant, estimated cost of $25 million. Times Square became a ghost town, and so did the rest of the city. On May 25th, 2020, George Floyd, a year-old Black American man, was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota by the police. 2 autopsies found Floyd's death to be a homicide. We will get together and right. Overnight, we got divided by the racism. Cool heads different after George Floyd's. Floyd's death protest against police brutality, racism, and lack of police accountability. Unrest spreads across the US. City streets flooded with protesters delivering a powerful Black Lives Matter. The sign "Breathe" could be seen. That as a major section, tourist destination, entertainment center displayed Black Lives Matter message billboard behind the police. Times Square became the stage for demonstration. To prevent to go to Times Square, police closed off neighboring streets. Times Square's security officer looks with concern at the large of protesters. Police officer alarmed at the strong messages coming. Protesters in front of Donald Trump Hotel at Circle demanding to be heard. On both sides, freshly painted Black made a mural in front of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. Midtown West 34th Street and at the main post office and Penn State, New York City became a popular route for demonstrators. The Brooklyn Bridge, as a national historical landmark, and as a part of tourist attraction, became the process main route to cross Brooklyn to Manhattan and to City Hall. Over 2,000 cities in the US have seen demonstrations on June 13th. Millions of people flooded the streets in protest of injustice. Messages of frustration. Health care workers, nurses, and doctors were among them. While the majority of protests have been peaceful, demonstrations exploded into riots and looting. A young man wrote at the in Washington Square, "We have every right to loot and protest a nation we build free." Vandalized the Brooklyn Library property, where Diane Marvin was the first American woman as its director from 2007 to 2011 to lead a major library system in New York State. The Brooklyn Public Library has a free speech zone and civil rights support. Violence and looting undermined, distracted the entire national movement from this righteous cause. Looters smashed way into many stores like Dwayne Reed on Fifth Avenue. The second day of curfew, which was made of other unrest, sparked of George Floyd. Across the city, business large, boarded up storefronts, apartment buildings, and homes. Saks Fifth Avenue fortified its flagship store with plywood coverings and hired private security guards like Mr. Perry. There were also razor wire, dogs, and flood lights. Plywood covered Soho business became a piece of history. Union Square, Manhattan has historically been the place for many political events. This plywood with the victims of justice became a memorial. Protesters expressed their by using media messages. June 5th, the Minneapolis City Council authorized the mayor to enter a training order the states of Minnesota banning chokeholds and trains. Because in protest against police brutality and hundreds of arrests, Mayor Bill de Blasio said on June 7th that New York City curfew continue all week from 8 p.m. to a.m. On May 30th, 12 states called the National Guard and at least 12 imposed curfews that it was a common scene to see the protection by police officers. We Pan-African flag on subways, streets, and amid protesters. Red stands for the blood of African people, for Black people. Green for the growth fertility of Africa. Numerous statues and monuments honoring persons or events associated with slavery and racism in the US and elsewhere removed or destroyed during the protest. William Joyce, a New York City lawyer, marched against the statues. The statues should be put in themes or historical history in our past cannot be erased. Officer Philippa, the statue of Theodore Roosevelt on the front of the Museum of Natural History. Police Officer Mercado, staying guards at Columbus Circle, location for protest gatherings, not the reflection of the protesters' glasses. Police Officer Flores, steady guards at Columbus to prevent protesters from vandalizing the USS National Monument dedicated to the aboard of USS when the ship exploded in Havana Harbor in 1889. And joined peaceful protests in Coney Island. Joined them as well. Washington Square, located in Greenwich Village, the best known as New York City Park and a center for culture activity, also became a center of dissonance. Black lives became a fashionable signature like on those shoes. The protest bring to mind the 1921 massacre, one of the worst incidents of racial violence in US history. All means and shades to deliver the messages. And here says, I am a psychoanalyst, and in my opinion, it's all FED. A homeless man, lots of story, looking at the project on Broadway. So I zoomed because I was looking at his face and tried to figure out what crossed his mind when New York seat of New York City government, a national historic landmark, became a major site to congregate for of protests. The steps of City Hall provided a backdrop for political demonstrations and concerning city politics. Fencing surroundings the building's perimeter, security present by New York Police Department. Protesters came out in Lower Manhattan's City Hall Park, demanding that the city cut at least $1 billion from the city police department 20 budget in light of the national against violence. The movement started on Tuesday, June 4th, with just a few dozen people. And overnight, it grew into a group of a few hundred. Large sign, walk in City Hall Park. No cops, we want justice. Messages to Mayor de Blasio and Cuomo, resign. And the couple talk about what the calls on them. And they say the safest communities have the most sources, not the most cops. The protest out as a Black Lives Matter, other political agenda backed. An emblem consisting of cross, hammer, and sickle used as a symbol of And here, a familiar in the crowd I had not seen in ages. Angela Davis, an American political activist, philosopher, academic, feminist, former member of the Communist Party USA and the Black Panther Party, still is popular among us. When I was growing up in the Soviet Union, she was a human hero. Demonstrators for students for the march on Fifth Avenue and passed of the Met Fifth Avenue. The steps of the museum expressed their messages. Like this one, demanding stop for police of schools. Just showing you different messages, faces. Had Plaza Park, Brooklyn, another place for protesters gathering. Uptown Hill in defense of Black lives at 167 Nicholas Park. They lit candles and put down cloth with the names of victims. Healthcare workers join other as demonstrators. Is a health crisis. Say the names. My skin should not be my death. And I learned a little Spanish. We are stronger. Defund New York City Police Department. A protester, Tony Haska, wearing a mask of revolution and stood with a sign on the left front, Black Lives Matter, and on the back, Stay Injustice, vote. LGBT community demanding to protect Black women. Black Lives Matter. Brad with husband Nick with the cardboard signs in Fifth Avenue and 40th Street. After all those intention, city officials intended to reduce the city's funding by a police group for and social services as part of the upcoming budget negotiations. And that crowd was in Bryant Park that became also popular for demonstrations. Police presence could be seen on many streets like in Harlem, 125th Street. Lee and Melvin Rivera for Russian Heights took part in students' protests in North Manhattan. So young and older went on the streets to protest. Happy children on their way to health in Harlem show a positive sign about the protest. My other neighbor hugs essential workers all over the world. Travis is optimistic about the future. That which is hateful, do not do to another. The same slogan became a message in all 5 boroughs. On June 10th, the Louisville City Council voted anonymously to ban knock search warrants. The law is called Breonna's Law. It's all officers who serve warrants to wear body cameras and have them turned on from at the least 5 minutes before the vote is served to at least 5 minutes after. I don't want to injustice. Flaws in Times Square laid out in many victims. I strive for my work to be unbiased, but this message written by Carrie and her hits home. Let's support each other. Note, let's cherish friendships like Lila, Diana, and their best friend Pooch, Leo. We have to see top qualities of police officers are like honesty, integrity, ethics, communication, negotiation, and de-escalation skills, kindness, open-mindedness, and diversity. Let's show empathy to people in need. Empathy to the lonely and sick. Finding compassion like nurses and Adele. Leslie, Christy, from Texas, who left, loved home, and came to help us in this dark place. We need love. We cannot live without love. Is the most redeeming thing we have in the world. As come in La Peste. Nelson Mandela's message rings true today. He was born hating another person because of the color or his color, his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And I finished my presentation with this message. I saw this double rainbow over the Manhattan Bridge. I felt that all is going because a double rainbow is a symbol of transformation, and it is a good fortune. The first arc represents the material world, and the second arc represents the spiritual realm. So, the listening and presentation.
So, Olga, thank you very, very much for that. That was put together really beautifully. So I have a couple of questions for you. How many protests did you attend, and would you ever feel threatened or afraid?
I have attended in all 5 boroughs. I couldn't count them because pretty much I was on the street. I never at once felt threatened by police or by protesters. Everybody was very nice. And like I said, I never tried to put myself into any confrontation because, like I said, I just want to be a neutral observer. That's what I did.
Okay. So let me ask you this. How does it feel as someone born in another country to photograph civil unrest in a different country?
I had very, because former Soviet Union, we never had the chance to express what we wanted to say. And I watched the young people that were on the streets protesting and telling messages, demands that how lucky they are, because in some cases, people do not have such knowledge or rights. So I was so happy for them, right or wrong. I said I was totally neutral. I was happy for them that would be able to go out and tell stories, their feelings, and demand, some of reaction.
And what camera do you shoot with, Olga?
I just even read, make sure I shoot with the OMD M1. This time lens is 150 millimeters. Zoom.
And when you're photographing these difficult times, do you have a sense, do you miss home more than other times? Do you look at us and say, like you said, it's wonderful to be able to protest? Can you share a little bit of where you go emotionally when you're shooting projects like this?
Half of my life I spent in former Soviet Union, in communist society. Half of my life in different society, not capital. So very dramatic, opposite economical and social systems. So it's like when I went on the streets, one foot was there and one was here. And I had this very turmoil, and many times, of course, like I said, I'm gonna cry and, excuse me. Growing up, and I went to colleges in Russia. I spent 7 years studying and learning. And, we went to different demonstrations, mostly on behalf of supporting common ideas that were forced to, and we were allowed to express what we felt. And here I see the people of all ages, of all backgrounds, of all cultures, who came from different countries, all came for the better, and good for them. And they were not afraid, because they knew that they're not going to go into big confrontation with the police or breaking. They will be all right. They will allow it. And Governor Cuomo and Mayor of New York City de Blasio go and express, but behave yourself. Don't go lewd. Don't go, and break stores. So, yeah, it was very emotional. Like I said, I was there, a participant side, recording what's been happening and took place. And I'm glad I was out there to see it for myself. If I could not in Russia, at least I could see how, happened here in the country. That became my second.
And we have a question from Renata. Did you ask for permission when photographing people that were more of those private sort of moments?
All the time. Yes, all the contacts, I have the email permissions. Of course, I asked them all, because otherwise I would not. I want to do them in my photos, and a lot of them became friends. We went out for dinners, we socialized, we still writing emails, calling each other. So yes, we are good friendships with them.
And are you aware of the photo bill of rights that has been circulating?
Not sure what it is. No, it's not.
Yeah, there's a bill of rights that photographers have been sending around. But Kat asked a really great question, and I was thinking the same thing, is that you're really out of your comfort zone shooting these protesters, being such a nature photographer. How did you come to, get comfortable around doing this?
You're absolutely right. It's a good question. Underwater photography, I do cityscapes and I do people. And a pretty shy person. So for me, around the people who actually emotionally on their highs, and kind of felt very uncomfortable. But then I thought, you know what? I can work. I would like to be in my camera, show them what they felt. And I would say about 4 to 5 days, kind of over my resistance to be so shy. And I just went out, and I thought, what's going to be, what happen? They might say, yes. Some people said no, and that was fine. But most people say, yes, it's okay, you can take pictures of me. So I broke the barrier, shy, and actually went on the streets as a photographer. I think I can do much more. I have more power over myself, more shyness. And I'm much more comfortable being around people.
Great. Well, Olga, I have to tell you that was very moving imagery, and we thank you very, very much for contributing and sharing with us your experience and giving us some of your personal insights into shooting this project. So thank you very much. We're going to take another.
Thank you for having.
No, it was our pleasure.